Hi, my name is Jennifer Leita. I'm the academic advisor for the Department of Health and Human Development. Today I wanted to take some time specifically to talk about one of our programs in the kinesiology major. So hopefully my intent is to give an overview of program particulars, a little bit of information and insight into what the student experience is of the kin major. Also to talk about the application process and what students can expect in terms of when can they apply, what does the application process look like. So hopefully answer a lot of common questions that students have regarding the major. If at the end, I definitely welcome opportunity to talk with students individually. I'll be available for fall admissions and orientations, virtual advising during the summer months, as well as virtual and phone advising throughout fall quarter as we continue in a primarily remote learning environment. So I definitely welcome an opportunity to talk with students individually through phone or Zoom conferencing. Email is definitely a great way to get a hold of me. You can see my email address here on the screen. And I definitely look forward to working with these individuals, but hopefully this will give you a good understanding of an overview and answer a lot of common questions that students have about the major. So I look forward to sharing with you a little bit more detail about this today. Just a little bit of a background as to who we are in our department and the focus of our kind of mission of our kin program specifically. The kinesiology and physical education programs develop graduates who make informed decisions about human movement and performance that foster health and physically active lifestyles for themselves and others. To this end, faculty are dedicated to quality teaching, scholarship, and service. Really one of the core pieces that anchors the experience and the focus of the kinesiology major is a passion for health and wellness, primarily centered around human movement. So that's really kind of the anchor. From that, there's a lot of opportunity for individuals to explore particular specializations and dig into specific content that is of individual interest or applies to their future career interests. But you'll see this common core of classes that all kin students take that's really grounded in a sound understanding of principles of health and human movement. So that said, what kinds of classes do kin students take? Kin students across the board, once they're into the major, regardless of their specialization, they're going to be taking classes that are from this common core. So students are going to take a mixture of lab-based classes about principles of human body as well as human movement, as well as some lecture-based classes that are focused on understanding principles of psychosocial aspects of human movement. So all kin students are going to take Biology 348, which is Human Anatomy and Physiology, which is a lab-based science course, just to really anchor us in that understanding of how the human body works and getting us grounded. It's really an important platform. It's a prerequisite for most kinesiology courses, so it's really an important class of just it's as a platform from which a lot of our concepts build on top of. Students are going to take courses in measurement and evaluation, as well as understanding principles of sound research. Part of our goal is to help students understand and make informed decisions regarding health and human movement, and so understanding principles of sound research is going to be an important piece in that. Students will take lab-based classes in biomechanics, which is kind of physics of the human body. They'll take exercise physiology. They'll take functional anatomy, which is kind of another step in kind of our journey with anatomy and physiology, of learning about being able to palpate bony landmarks and learning about muscle origin and insertion and muscle actions as well. Students will take lecture-based classes that have a strong emphasis usually on group interactions as well as project-based learning in subjects such as motor control and learning, strength and conditioning program design, psychology of sport as well. So again, all this is kind of our common core that all kin students will take, kind of giving us that platform from which then we need to have special areas of focus for each specialization. In addition to these academic courses, students are required to take at least 4 different activity classes as part of their experience here at Western. We value human movement, and as a part of that, we want students to be engaging in human movement. That's really we want to be living in step with our stated beliefs always. Also, we have a strong experiential learning component. So in addition to academic coursework, every student who moves through our program will be expected to engage in an experiential learning. So oftentimes this looks like job shadowing or gaining experience in a clinical or professional setting, Also opportunities for students to engage in peer mentorship or to act as a teaching assistant in lab-based classes to deepen their understanding of concepts as well. So definitely a strong blend of academic-based programs as well as experiential-based ones throughout our programs. One common question that we'll have is, what the heck do you do with a kin degree? So the answer to that is lots, lots of different opportunities from kin. Certainly we have, and I'll talk a little bit about the specializations in just a minute, but oftentimes people who have a future desire to continue on with their education by pursuing graduate level programs in things like physical therapy, physician's assistant, occupational therapy, chiropractic, nursing, athletic training. Kin is a great platform to help students along their journey. Really, our pre-healthcare specialization is really designed with that intent in mind, recognizing like how can we equip and prepare students and giving them that grounding in principles of health, wellness, and human movement, while also helping them to work through their time in the major to satisfy major requirements as well as graduate school prerequisites for additional study. So the major is really thoughtfully prepared to support students in their long-term goals towards careers in allied-based health professions. In addition, students are well prepared when they leave the kin program to pursue careers in a variety of health and wellness settings, whether that be personal training, strength coaching, whether that be working as a health and wellness consultant in professional organizations, are housed in university settings as well. Oftentimes students will go on to pursue careers as strength and conditioning coaches or athletic coaching as well. So those degrees are really designed well to support careers in those areas. We're also really unique in the fact that we have a sports psychology undergraduate program, and so students who have a desire to go on and pursue careers in sports psychology, whether that be working with teams and athletes or counseling with sports psychology as a portion of their profession, the sports psychology specialization is really designed well to support careers in that, especially with additional graduate study and certification as well. So a little bit about the specializations within our major. So we have 3 specializations within the major that students can apply for. And a common question is, how do I know which specialization is right for me? So a couple of handles that I like to give students. Our exercise science specialization is really designed to support students well who have a passion for health, wellness, and human movement, especially movement-based careers. So this would include things like personal training, strength and fitness professions, as well as athletic training. If students are wanting to be involved in professions that support primarily movement-based, this is really a great platform to pursue. Certainly we have students who at some point may change their minds or may pursue health-based professions from this specialization. So there's definitely flexibility, but this, I would say the exercise science specialization is really geared towards students who have a love and a desire to work primarily in a movement-based capacity or helping in working in professions that have a strong movement-based component. The pre-healthcare professions specialization is really designed to support students who are intending careers in allied health professions. And again, the intent with this is to support students in that journey, that we're covering principles of health, wellness, and movement and supporting them along the way with meeting the prerequisites that they'll need for continued education. So it's really common for students who are pursuing careers and who are pursuing graduate study in those allied health professions to need a lot of support in science classes that they're going to be expected to take a lot of biology series, chem series, physics series. And so this specialization is designed to help support them in that those classes that they're taking towards meeting graduate school prerequisites are also going to be working towards fulfilling major elective requirements. So this is really to support them in moving through their major and setting them up to be as successful as possible as graduate school applicants to be able to meet their needs along the way. Additionally, we have a sports psychology specialization, which is, again, it's pretty unique. Very few programs around the country have an undergraduate option for majoring in sports psychology. I'm an alum of our sports psychology program, so clearly I'm biased, but it's really a special program in that in this, students take a mix of courses from the psychology department as well as kinesiology to really round out and give them an understanding of the psychosocial aspects of movement and sport, as well as understanding the physical aspect and principles of movement. So really neat for folks who are wanting to pursue careers in coaching. We have a lot of coaches who come through this track, but it's also a good platform for students who are passionate about these principles and really could see themselves working with athletes, with exercisers, or with the general community as a counselor, and working particularly with an emphasis on principles of sports psychology and working with athletes as a special population. So this would be a great platform for students who want to pursue graduate education in sports psychology and eventually pursue their certification as a certified mental performance consultant. So this is really a great springboard for that as well. Also, it's pretty rare to have an undergrad program in sports psychology, let alone to have a minor. So our minor in sports psychology is available to students from across disciplines. So this is available to students. We certainly have some students who will come to us from the psych department as psych majors, or kin students in perhaps the pre-healthcare professions who, when they're exposed to psychology of sport, really find themselves wanting to dig in more to those principles, who might choose to add the minor. But it's also available to students from across departments who are intrigued and excited and want to learn more about this. In that minor, students take a blend of psychology courses as well as some kin classes that are specifically targeted towards psychosocial aspects of health, wellness, and movement. So they'll take courses in psychology of sport, sociology of sport, exercise psychology, as well as a seminar based specifically. So the minors are really more the mental side and a little less grounded in kind of the principles of movement. So kind of some neat distinctions between those two. So how do you become a kin major? Kin major, it's a really popular and competitive major on campus. Our goal with our program is to have a very student-centered experience that it features small class sizes. Most of the time, kin classes are capped at about 40 students, so because we want to have a lot of opportunity for classes to be interactive, for students to work with one another, for students to be able to develop relationships with their faculty. And so most classes are between 25 to 40 students, which can be really different from your GUR experience depending on the classes that you've taken. And it is a competitive program. We like that it is that we can keep our classes small and get that experience that we find is really, really important for our students to have. In that, there are 3 times of year that you can apply for admission into the kin major. Our application cycles are open the first 2 weeks of fall, winter, and spring quarters, and it's an online application process. Our kin major application is focused exclusively right now on evaluating students and ranking them by their GPA. So students can apply to the major once they have earned 75 college credits and they have a minimum of a 2.50 GPA. The minimum is a 2.50 GPA just for consideration, but the major is very competitive, so it's very rare that we would see a 2.50 GPA oftentimes get admitted, and I'll talk a little bit about our average GPAs and what that looks like in just a few minutes. But it's an online application process that students complete, which they're asked to input a little bit of information about themselves, which is usually, just kind of the nuts and bolts: name, address, phone number, email. They're asked to input their total credits that they've completed at every institution that they've attended. And then transfer students also need to send an unofficial copy of transcripts to me as well as to support their application. But it's a very basic, straightforward application. It doesn't require it's not nearly as extensive an application process as it is for your admission into Western. So how do you get into the kin major? Who's accepted into the program? At this time, the kin major admission is determined exclusively by GPA. It's a weighted GPA, so that means that we look at your GPA by credits at every institution that you've attended. And this is really to kind of get a sense of the bulk of your work. If a student had has taken 80 credits at one institution and their GPA was a 3.5, and they took 10 credits at another and their GPA was a 2.5, we want to make sure that we're recognizing that that their GPA reflects the bulk of their work rather than just their time at Western or just their time at one institution. So we look at their time at all institutions, and so we and that information allows us to calculate their weighted GPA, and then we rank our applicants based on their weighted GPA in the specialization for which they have applied. At that time, then we are able to extend an offer of admission to students based on the number of spaces that we have available in every specialization, and so we extend those offers based upon their ranking by weighted GPA. That said, there aren't any prerequisite or required courses that you need to accomplish prior to applying to the kin major. There are certainly classes you can take that would work towards satisfying major requirements once you're in the major, but it doesn't matter to us if you haven't taken any of those classes prior to applying. The big determining factor is really that GPA and stewarding and protecting that GPA well. So acceptance to the major is competitive. The amount of applications that we receive every quarter varies, but it's not uncommon that in some application cycles, we've only been able to accept fewer than half of our applicants that have applied at that time. So it is a competitive one. Certain cycles we're able to take most of our applicants. So it really can vary quarter to quarter, but it is a competitive one. The average GPA of the applicants who are accepted into each of the 3 specializations is noted here. So in the last year, our average GPA of admitted candidates in the exercise science specialization was a 3.40. In our pre-healthcare professions, it was 3.48. And in our sports psychology specialization, it was a 3.36. Certainly there are times where we see students with GPAs lower than that absolutely get in, but just to kind of give a sense of that it is a competitive process. And yeah, we want to support you as best we can in that journey. So if you've got questions about how to protect your GPA or doing GPA repair to help make you as competitive an applicant as possible, I'm happy to help advise in that capacity. So oftentimes students are excited about becoming a kin major and are not able to apply at this time. I love to talk to students who are excited and know that kin majors in their future, and they come and they ask, like, well, what can I take right now? I'm waiting to apply. What can I get into? What can I take? Some great options for classes to take before becoming a kin major. At any time, I always encourage students, if you have GURs to get done prior to applying, get them done. It's really nice to be able to free up that space in your schedule to be focusing on your major classes once you're in the program. So I always say definitely try to work through as many GURs as you can if you're a current Western student. Also, so if you're a freshman, new freshman or a sophomore, and you are intending to major for kin, definitely some other productive classes I encourage you to take. Definitely take before applying. I think it's helpful because it makes your time in the major more productive. I'd encourage you to explore taking Biology 101, or if you're considering pursuing a career in allied health professions and you're pretty certain that you're going to be wanting to apply to graduate school, you might consider taking both Biology 204 and 205 along with Chem 161. All of our kin majors have to take, or will be taking, Biology 348, which is human anatomy and physiology. And so it's really nice for students to have the prerequisites for that class done ahead of time. So prereqs for Bio 348 are either Bio 101, so you can take that class to satisfy prereqs. Like I said, if you are thinking about applying, if you're planning on applying to grad school for PT, OT, physician's assistant, usually the grad school prereqs will like for you to have taken the biology series or at least the first 2 classes in that. So other ways to fill prereqs for Bio 348 are to take both Biology 204 and 205 along with Chem 161, the first class in the physics series. So it's really nice to start working on some of those classes prior to getting into the kin major. Those are classes that we can give you credit towards applying towards major fulfillment as well. For folks that are considering applying to the sports psych specialization, you're able to have access to Psych 101 and all of the 200 level psych classes prior to becoming a sports psych major. So these classes are great to be able to take and start working towards. They can count towards fulfilling major elective requirements once you're in the program, and you have access to them prior to becoming a kin major. For students who are interested in the pre-healthcare specialization, I really encourage them to start working through some of the biology, chemistry, and physics series. So Bio 204 and 205 are important ones. They're common graduate school prereqs, so they're nice. You have access to taking them prior to getting into the kin major. They're nice to take along the way. Other classes, the chem series and the physics series do have a math prerequisite, so students need to take the Math 114 prior to taking chemistry series, and students need to have completed Math 115 to allow them to register for physics series. So if you're a freshman coming in, definitely taking your ALEX placement test and starting to work through Math 114 and 115 are great ideas to be able to unlock those chem and physics series later on. Another helpful class for students in the pre-healthcare specialization to take is Math 240, which is statistics. Again, if you are pretty certain that grad school is in your future, nearly all grad schools would like you to take a statistics class as a prerequisite. So Math 240 is a class that you have access to prior to getting into the kin major that we can apply towards fulfilling major electives as well. So getting those math and beginning, at least starting and kind of working through at least one or two of those lab-based science series is really time well spent. For students who are in exercise science or who are intending to apply for that exercise science specialization, I would definitely say check out our website for classes that are major electives. Most of the major electives you have access to take prior to becoming a kin major. Any class that's marked KIN, kin, is restricted to majors, so you can only take that once you've been admitted into the major. However, lots of other classes can be applying towards the major prior to being admitted. And I think this really varies depending on your area of interest. Certainly taking things like the chem series and physics series are super helpful, but they're also, depending on your own personal area of interest, maybe taking some of our other classes that are psych-based or anthropology can also work towards fulfilling major electives. And so these are classes oftentimes along the way that can be doing double duty, that can be fulfilling GURs and can be working towards satisfying major electives. Those are always helpful classes to take kind of along the way. And if you have questions or concerns about, particularly with exercise science ones, about like which classes can or maybe should I be taking based up, and I'm not certain, I'm happy to talk through for students in any specialization about kind of doing some pre-major advising of helpful classes to take along the way. Always one thing I encourage students, or I try to be really clear about, is in this time when you're waiting to become a kin major, it can be really tempting to say like, oh, I can take all of these classes. I can take Bio 204, Chem series, Physics series. I can take them all. Does that mean I should take them all? Sometimes. I don't encourage you to take them necessarily all at once. Certainly taking 3 lab-based science classes in a quarter is extensive. It's a heavy commitment of workload for the time to be successful in those classes. So I would say always encourage students to, when they're waiting to get into the kin major, is to be taking at least 1 class a quarter that they feel really confident in their ability to be successful in. Even if it doesn't feel like it's working towards something. Sometimes students feel like, well, I don't want to take this class. I'm interested in it. I think I would be good at it, but I don't feel like I should be taking it because it's not a GWAR or it's not something that's working, that's satisfying a major requirement. If you are waiting to get admitted into the kin major and you are taking a class that is either protecting your GPA or boosting your GPA, I can assure you that class is doing something. Because GPA is the only factor that we look at, it's really, really important to care for that GPA well. So a class that you take that is helpful in your quarter while you're taking maybe a lab-based science or while you're taking a GUR, if you're taking a class that's stretching or challenging you, I would encourage you to have 1 class in there that you feel really competent in, that you feel really confident that you're excited about taking and feel encouraged that you can be successful in, to kind of protect or insulate that GPA along the way. And I'm happy to talk through kind of some specifics. If you're a student who has had some struggles in some of your classes and would like to talk about like GPA repair or retaking classes, I definitely encourage you to reach out to General Academic Advising. They are great, and we'll talk through options for, if I retake this class, what would be the impact on my GPA, or can help kind of advise in terms of general academic GPA repair. So definitely talk to the folks in academic advising about those specific issues because they are 100% helpful. So once you apply, and what happens for students who are accepted into the kin major? Well, their first step is that they'll meet with me to develop a comprehensive plan of study. So students who are accepted or extended an offer of admission, they don't automatically, that offer of admission doesn't automatically declare them a kin student, because we want to make sure that I can meet with them and talk about their personal needs along the way and make sure that they really, that this is really a good fit. Most students who apply do end up declaring, but some students are contemplating other majors. And so having this time where they meet with me and they talk about what their time in the major will look like. We talk about timelines for graduation. So once we have that meeting, students have a really good understanding of exactly what sort of their quarterly course loads are going to be, and when their expected graduation date might be if they're able to continue with the courses as planned. So not every student chooses to accept that offer of admission if they find that another program that they're considering better meets their needs. But we really think that's important, that we get a chance to meet and make sure that this really is a good fit for every student who's applied. So in that meeting, we'll talk about major requirements. I'll look and see what classes that you've already taken that have maybe can be applied towards fulfilling major requirements along the way. We'll talk about future career interests. If you're planning on attending grad school in a specific field of study, we'll talk about common prerequisites and make sure that when we develop a plan, that it's really designed to meet your needs in the best way possible. So we'll talk about about building quarterly course loads that you feel like meet your needs best. If graduating in a certain time frame is a priority, we'll talk about what it would look like to achieve that. If taking manageable credit loads is a priority, we'll talk about what it will take to achieve that. We'll talk about options for taking classes over summer if students want to take classes over the summer. Some students really need to guard their summers, and so we talk about what it would look like to fulfill all those needs just during the traditional academic year. So again, after that meeting, you have a really good understanding of what the rest of your time in the major is going to look like. And we keep all of these things in mind. Along the way, I'll be checking that your plan meets major requirements, that it meets all of Western's graduation requirements. So Western's graduation requirements include students accumulating a minimum of 180 college credits, and 60 credits of which must be upper division, which is 300 or 400 level coursework. So I'll check your plan for all of these things to make sure that we're addressing all of your needs to fulfill all of the grad requirements and the program requirements. And again, if grad school is something that students are contemplating, I'll try to make sure that I'm incorporating as many grad school prerequisites as I can. In addition to my help, I'll be I'm Kin Students' help for academic advising purposes, so course planning, registration concerns. When it's time to graduate and they need a degree evaluation done, I'm their point of contact. But in addition to my services or my assistance, you'll also be assigned to a faculty mentor in your area of study. And so your faculty mentor will be able to advise you about career planning or grad school preparation or options for pursuing and completing the experiential learning component of the kin major. So your grad faculty mentor will kind of be all of the real life considerations, and I'm your help for things about the logistics and nuts and bolts of moving through the major and graduating on time. And your faculty mentor will help you with all of kind of the real world questions, concerns, and planning along the way. So some common questions that students have about the kin major that I want to make sure that I take some time to address are, can I take kin classes before I'm accepted into the major? The answer to that is no. Classes that are marked KIN, kinesiology classes, are restricted just to majors. And that's, there's a whole host of reasons about why those are restricted. And I know that as much as you'd love to have access to those beforehand, we really want to make sure that that students who are currently in the major have access to those, and that they're really just for students who have already been admitted. So no, you can't take kin classes until you've been accepted into the major. But again, I'm happy to advise you about additional courses that you can be taking that would be working towards fulfilling major elective requirements that are not kin classes along the way. Another question, I guess, how do I know which specialization is right for me? Really, it's a matter of I always ask students, what are your future career goals? Because from that, oftentimes I can advise a specialization. But I would also ask you, what lights you up? What kinds of classes are most exciting for you? And I feel like choosing a specialization based upon the things that are most exciting and compelling to you and that best line up with future career goals is really kind of where we go. Sometimes students are tempted to kind of look at maybe average GPAs in specialization if they're concerned that their GPA might not be considered, or look at the number of spaces available that we can offer. Our pre-healthcare professions specialization is the most popular specialization. It's also the one that has the most spaces available, so we try to mediate that. But I don't encourage students to kind of pick the specialization that they think they have the best chance of getting into, mostly because it often backfires and they don't get into the specialization, but maybe they would have gotten into the specialization that was most aligned with their interests and career goals. So I always say, like, pick the one that best lines up with where you're wanting to go. If you're wanting to pursue nursing, PT, occupational therapy, physician's assistant, pick pre-healthcare professions is a great track to support you in that. If you're not certain, if your interests kind of lie in both areas, I would say, like, take a look at some of the classes that go along with that. If the electives in pre-healthcare specialization are something that's not really, like, it's not attractive to you, but as you're looking at the electives that apply towards, or the required courses even that are applied towards exercise science, and you're like, yeah, that sounds awesome. I actually would really like to take exercise prescription, or I'm really more interested in some of these other areas, then maybe that's like the affirmation that you need, that specialization is right for you. If you're someone who loves both the mental aspect of sport and wellness, or you're excited about, what barriers keep people from adopting exercise programs, then some of those things like sports psychology, which is that blend of like really that mental and, that social emotional piece of movement as well as the physical side, then that might be a good fit for you. And again, I'm happy to talk with you a little bit more and explore this as an individual if that's something that you're really kind of struggling to find. If you know KINS where your home is, but you just don't know which one is best suited for you, I'm happy to help you navigate that. How many students get into the KIN major? It varies by cycle. For students who apply in the spring to start the program in the fall, so if you always apply the quarter before you would begin the program. So students who apply in spring quarter to start KIN classes in the fall, we generally have the most spaces available at the time. It just happens to be with how our course sequencing is laid out. We're able to take around 65 or so applicants. It varies depending. It's kind of a complicated issue, but it's roughly 65 students we could admit in the spring application cycle, and those 65 students begin the major officially in fall quarter. Other quarters, for students who apply in the fall to start in winter, or for students who apply in the winter to begin the program in the spring, that we generally have around 35 to 40 spaces available for students at that time. So certainly those, that fall application cycle and that winter application cycle tend to be the most competitive. And so I like to let students know that kind of going in, that's kind of the nature of the beast. But again, the goal with that is because we want our students to have a particular experience. We want them to have small classes. We want them to have a lot of contact with their instructor, and not to feel like they're a student without a name or a face. We want them to really feel known, and to get that experience throughout our major. It was really important to us. That said, because the KIN major is competitive and because there are limited spaces available, particularly for students who apply in fall or who apply in winter, students want to know what happens if they're not accepted into the KIN major. Well, they're certainly welcome. You're certainly welcome to apply again, and we encourage that, particularly if it was really close. Definitely apply for next cycle. And I would encourage students to go ahead and meet with me. We'll talk options about what that looks like. Sometimes, if you're applying repeatedly for the KIN major and not able to gain acceptance, KIN major is a great one. I love it, but it's a great program, and it's a great platform for pursuing particularly health-based professions, but it's definitely not the only one. There are a lot of other ways that we can support students who want to have a future in allied health. If KIN major is what's slowing you down, we don't want that to be the case. So I'm available to talk options with students. We encourage them to explore resources with general academic advising to talk through all the options as well, about, just to make sure this is a good fit for you. If it's a matter of just needing to bring the GPA up a little bit in order to become a more competitive applicant, I'm happy to advise in that capacity, and I'll also encourage students to talk to general academic advising as well for situations like GPA repair as well. Sometimes students start in one specialization, and then through exposure to different courses, they might realize that we're better served by pursuing a different specialization. So what if I want to change specializations? Can I? Yes, oftentimes. We want to place you as well as we can prior to getting into the major. But that said, if your interests and your career goals change along the way, we want to support you in that journey as best we can. So for students who want to change specializations, they reapply. So they stay in their current specialization, they're still taking coursework, and then they are encouraged to apply their next cycle. And then if their GPA, if there's room for us to accommodate them switching specializations, then we're able to do that at that time. But it does involve reapplication. And so there is the possibility that they might be denied that specialization change. In that case, they would stay in the current specialization that they're already in. Other question that I will hear is, how long does it take to complete the kin major? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on how many credits you have coming in, and it depends on the type of planning that you've done in terms of course selection along the way. Usually we expect that it's going to take usually at least 4 quarters, even with really thoughtful planning, just how the course sequencing lays out, usually between 4 to 6 quarters to complete the major. So roughly, a year and a half to 2 years is really common. And again, it definitely depends on were you accepted into the major when you had 75 credits? Well, certainly it's going to take a little longer just to accumulate all the additional credits that you'll need to meet Western's 180 minimum, versus were you accepted into the program to start fall of your senior year and you'd already taken bio series, chem series, and physics series, and that's done, and you really just have kin courses that are left to be completed. So we see it vary, but generally we would expect it to take, for most students, it takes anywhere between a year and a half to 2 years to complete the major in its entirety. But again, that's why they meet with me, so that before you accept admission into the kin major, you have a really good understanding of what your timeline looks like and what it's going to take to accomplish the major. And if we want you to be able to have the best advising possible and have the best experience. And again, if the kin major doesn't look like it's going to support you in your goals, then, we want to find a major that can. So we want to be as supportive and as transparent in that process as we can. So those are most of the common questions I hear, but I definitely welcome comments that you have, of questions that you have that I really didn't have a chance to address in here, or how things pertain to your individual situation. So definitely encourage you to reach out to other resources that we have available for you remotely. Further info, our website, which is www.edu/HHD, which is for Health and Human Development. You can check out particulars on our kinesiology program there. We've got information about classes you can take prior to getting admitted, details on the requirements and electives in each specialization, information about experiential learning. What's this thing with field experience and internships? We've got lots of information about all of that stuff available online. So definitely encourage you to take a look at those resources as well. But I'm here to be of help to you in any way that I can in getting into the major and in your time in it. So definitely encourage you to email me with questions. When we resume a physical presence on Western's campus again, I'm housed in the Carver Academic Facility, which is in Office 201A. So definitely encourage you to come and visit me there, make an appointment to see me. While we were working in a remote environment, I'm available for either phone or Zoom advising appointments for individuals. So you can schedule a phone or a Zoom advising session at my calendly.com website, which is right there, and that'll allow me to meet with you in your preferred way. So I definitely welcome any of your questions. I'm just so grateful to welcome you all to Western. And if I can be of further assistance with questions that you might have about pursuing a kinesiology major, please let me know. Like I said, I'm here to help in any way that I can. And I look forward to, welcoming you in person at some point this next year. Take care.